Hello there everyone, it's Nina. Thanks for joining me today for another video. I hope you like birthday cards because that's what we're going to be focusing on today. And we have 4 different things that we're going to be making. All of the cards that I'm going to be creating today are going to feature a lot of the same products. And one of them is a stamp set called Sweet Birthday from Simon Says Stamp. It came out a few months ago, but it's a really good one and it has a lot of fun elements in it that you can use to make some really neat birthday cupcakes. In addition to the stamp set, I'm also going to be using some fun pattern papers from Pink Fresh Studios and an embossing folder that is a really beautiful design. And that's what we're going to work with first. I'm going to pull out this pattern paper. This is from Pink Fresh Studios called Picture Perfect. It's from their Picture Perfect collection. And I'm going to use this pattern paper inside of my embossing folder. It's really fun to emboss pattern paper because it gives your paper a completely different look, adds some really nice texture, and it's a fun way to stretch your supplies a little bit. This Winslow Medallions embossing folder creates such a stunning pattern. Now I'm going to cut this panel down to be about 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so that way it's a full A2 size card. And this pattern is going to get enhanced by adding a little bit of ink to it. I'm using some Simon Says Stamp positively saturated ink cubes to drag the ink across the raised areas of the paper, and I'm focusing the colors over top of the same sections of similar colors on the pattern paper. So for instance, I use the orange ink cube over top of the orange stripe and the pink ink cube over the pink stripe, green over the green stripe. And I'm just going to go through this whole section of paper and color it with the ink, and that's going to create this really nice raised pattern, and it enhances that design, but it's also somewhat tone on tone, so it's not in your face. It's a really subtle way to add some interest to a pattern paper design and then also elevate your embossing. In addition to that, I'm also going to splatter this with some white ink. This is from Dina Wakley, and it's a really nice white ink that stays white even if it interacts with other inks. I really like that because I don't want my white ink to be able to get tinted by another color, so this is nice that it stays true. I'm going to use this Birthday Wishes die, which I'll be using for another card project later. I've die cut it from some holographic cardstock. I thought the holographic cardstock would be the perfect finish for this greeting on top of this really bright and colorful background. Now I also die cut it a second time from some white, so that way I can stack these 2 pieces together and get a slightly more dimensional sentiment. And I'm also going to then layer this entire piece onto the shadow. The shadow layer is nice because it will add some separation from your greeting and the background, just makes it stand out a little bit more. I'm gluing all these pieces together with Simon Says Stamp Craft Tacky Glue. It's a nice strong adhesive and it does dry clear after it's completely dried, so you won't see any of the glue that might squish out the sides. I always make sure to use a place and pierce tool or place and score tool depending on the weight of my cardstock to help me line up the little dots that go above the eye. That's a really handy tool to be able to have on hand for not just embellishments but also for paper. For little pieces like that, it's invaluable. Now what you're seeing me do right now is make an edge-to-edge shaker card with this pattern paper panel. I'm covering all 4 sides of the paper with some terrific tape from Simon Says Stamp. And this tape is going to allow me to put some plastic around the edges of the card and hold the plastic in place to form a pocket. So this piece of plastic that I have here is slightly larger than my A2 card, and you could use either a clear bag that you can purchase from Simon Says Stamp. That's a really nice clear plastic, but you can also use leftover stamp packaging that you might have too. That's a great way to reuse something before it ends up in the trash. I'm wrapping the plastic around the 3 sides of my card to start, and that's leaving me with one opening that I can go ahead and pour some sequins through to be able to fill up my shaker. Once I'm happy with the amount of sequins that are inside, I always like to test it first, kind of shake it around a little bit just to make sure I'm happy with it. Then I can close everything up. Now I used a mix of sequins here. I used some confetti sequins from Simon Says Stamp and then also some stars confetti that was really pretty and I thought would match nicely with the colors that are in my card. So I'm going to go ahead and seal up that last edge so that way I can close all my sequins inside, and that's going to form the pocket. So now all of our sequins are trapped in there. We have this really awesome edge-to-edge shaker where the sequins go all the way to the edge of the card. It's one of my favorite types of cards to make. And because we have that embossing in there, that embossing is catching a little bit on the sequins, which is kind of fun because it kind of allows some of them to float towards the top and stay there. I put my sentiment in the center of my card using some foam tape. And now we're going to bring out the stamp set that I've been talking about, which is the Sweet Birthday set. but I pulled out one of the greetings and I'm going to stamp this onto some teal cardstock. I'm prepping the surface of the paper first with my Simon Says Stamp powder tool just to make sure that there's no extra static on this paper before I go ahead and do my stamping. That'll make sure I get a better and cleaner embossed impression. So when I sprinkle the powder on top, it's only going to stick to the wet ink and it's not going to stick to the rest of the paper, which is really nice. It gives you a really clean look. So I did heat set that with my Wagner heat tool, and then I can pop this up with a bit of foam tape underneath of my larger greeting, and that's going to complete this card. It's super fun and colorful. I just love the extra touch of that embossed detail on the pattern paper, and then we enhanced it a little bit more with some ink. Super fun, and it's a completely different look for this pattern paper. Even if you don't have these exact supplies that I'm using, I bet you have a piece of pattern paper and an embossing folder in your stash that you could do this exact same technique with, and I encourage you to try it. All right, let's move on to card number 2. That Winslow medallion, look how gorgeous it is when you emboss it onto holographic cardstock. This is just stunning. So I'm going to use this as a background panel for yet another edge-to-edge shaker card. I'm going to do the exact same thing that we did for the first one. I will go ahead and put some Terrific tape around all 4 sides. Then I'll go ahead and close up 3 of those sides of the plastic into that adhesive, so that way I can form my little pocket. From there, I'm going to add some sequins. Now this is a sequin mix from Picket Fence Studios. I don't know if it's still available. If it is, I will have it linked below in the video description. But if it's not, I'll find something that's similar and also link that too, just in case. It's a really pretty mix. I loved it because it has confetti embellishments in it that are like little candy pieces and sprinkles. I know Pretty Pink Posh has some of these too. So there's a few different companies that have made embellishment mixes like this, and they're super fun for birthday cards. Okay, so this is the Sweet Birthday stamp set, and you can see it's got some really fun images and lots of different greetings. These cupcakes you can use to build your own pieces and then make custom cupcakes, which I think is super fun. So I'm picking out a few of the pieces here, and also this cute lollipop that's in the shape of a heart. I'm going to stamp these with Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink, and then I'll color them with Copic markers. Now, because I have a lot to share with you today, I'm not going to show you the coloring. It was pretty simple coloring. I don't usually do something too fancy. I like to keep things easy and simple, so I just did some really quick coloring with these pieces. You can see I used some pinks and oranges and blues for this particular card. And I am using the coordinating dies. There are 3 different coordinating die sets. 2 different sets for the cupcakes, and then there's also a coordinating die set for the sentiments too. So you have options on how you want to be able to purchase these. You don't have to get the entire set if you don't want to. You could just get some of the elements. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere the 2 pieces of the cupcake together with a piece of foam tape because I am going to pop this little cupcake up off of my card. And then I embellished it with some of those fun little sprinkles from Picket Fence Studios and also a mix that I had from Pretty Pink Posh. So I'm going to sprinkle those around to be really nice, fun, chunky sprinkles on here. And then for the lollipop, I'm going to add glitter. So I used these little star confetti glitter pieces and glossy accents to be able to adhere those down. It just adds a really fun, crusty finish to the lollipop, which I think is super cool. Now I have a scallop circle here that I cut from a Lawn Fawn die set, and then also a standard circle from Simon Says Stamp, and I'm going to put these 2 pieces together to create a fun little focal point on my card. It's going to hang off the sides, and I will cut a part of that off just so that way it's flush with my card. This is obviously an A2 size card. This little focal area is going to be the perfect place for me to be able to attach my fun embellishments here. So we've got our cupcake and then also the lollipop. Now, lollipop, I did put a couple pieces of foam tape behind it just to give it some extra dimension, and I really like how that looks kind of sticking out from behind the cupcake. Now, using a few more of those sequins, I'm going to put a few of them around the cupcake just to add a little sparkle trail. I think that's fun, and it adds some movement to this part of the card, which is key because we've got a lot of movement in the background. So we want to make sure that the main focal point is not getting overpowered by the rest of the card. I'm going to bring in a sentiment here. This one I'm going to stamp again with embossing ink, but I'm stamping this time onto some pink cardstock. This really nice dull pink cardstock looked great with the colors of my lollipop and also the sequins and fun embellishments that we have here. So this I thought would make a perfect greeting to stick with my focal point. And so I cut that greeting out and then popped it up onto the side of my little circle panel here. I did finish things off with some gel pen details. This is just to add a little bit of highlight here and there on my images. Nothing crazy, but it's just enough to add a little bit of shine to the image. I did also ground my image with a gray Cupcake marker, just a small little halo of gray underneath the cupcake, just so it doesn't look like it's floating. And here are all those fun sequins floating inside of that holographic background, which looks so cool, embossed with that Winslow Medallions embossing folder. Such a bright and happy card. I just love how this one turned out. Now, you will notice off to the side there, I have some presents with tags hanging from them. And those tags I made using the same stamp set. We're going to work on those next. Now, I cut down some of that pink fresh pattern paper with the label tags die set from Simon Says Stamp. And I'm going to adhere them onto some colored cardstock that I die cut from that same die. That it matches pretty well to the pattern paper. This is going to be a backer because I want to make sure that I have a nice clean area to write on. Plus, it's going to add some stability to this tag. Pattern paper is a little bit more of a thinner paper, obviously, so adding some cardstock to it makes it a little bit more sturdy, and it's going to hold up well on top of your package. Now I'm going to use that stamp set, the Sweet Birthday set, and I'm going to stamp a couple of cupcakes here. I'm going to make some fun assortments. I love that you can mix and match these as much as you'd like. So after stamping these, I did color them. I will show you the coloring for these. Like I said earlier for the other card, I did very simple coloring. So for here, I used 3 shades for the icing, and I kept the darkest portion of it along the bottom of each tier of icing. And that's just adding some dimension. It's going to give me a lighter area towards the top to make it look more dimensional. And then for the wrapper, I just used 2 colors. 2 different oranges for this particular wrapper just to add some shading, and then same thing for the cake itself of the cupcake, 2 different shades. This blue wrapper was a little bit larger, so I did bring in 3 shades for this one. These are some blue-green markers, and I really like that dark teal color. It matched nicely with the pattern papers. I'm going to also then use some greens to color in the icing for this final cupcake layer. Now, this is a bright and colorful color combination. You don't have to go this bright, but I was inspired by the pattern papers that I was using, so I thought this would be fun to utilize these same colors for the cupcake elements as well. So using the coordinating dies, I'm going to go ahead and cut out my pieces. I am holding them down with my very, very low tack tape from Simon Says Stamp. It's my favorite tape to use for my die cuts. I'll go ahead and run these through my die cut machine, and it gives me all of my fun little elements. So to attach these together, I did the same thing that I did for the other cupcake that you saw me make earlier. I just put a piece of foam tape on the back side and then adhered the 2 elements together. And then that lets me just stick the whole piece right down onto my tag. Super simple and easy. I did that for both of the cupcakes, and then I came in with a white gel pen and added some more detail to them. Polka dots to the blue wrapper, and then I also added a highlight area to that little embellishment that's sitting on top of that other cupcake. I wanted to add a little bit more sparkle to these, so I'm going to bring in some white Blizzard Nouveau drops. These are basically a clear glitter Nouveau drop, and it's a really pretty accent on a lot of different things. I thought it would be fun to kind of almost create like a sugar frosting on these cupcakes, so that's why I went ahead and just kind of trailed it here and there across the icing to add that little bit of sparkle. For that little embellishment that's on the cupcake with the green icing, I did add a little bit of glossy accents to that just to make it shiny. It's an extra special detail that it just enhances the image. Using that Sweet Birthday stamp set, I did stamp a couple of greetings onto black cardstock, and I heat embossed those with white embossing powder. And then just using some small foam squares, I'm just going to put those onto my tags. I did tie a bit of ribbon to each of these tags that I found in my stash that matched nicely with the colors that I was using. So I used pink for the tag that had the pink icing on the cupcake, and then same thing for the other tag, I used green because that was the color of the icing on that cupcake as well. And then finally at the last minute, I was inspired by that lollipop that we were working on, and I added those fun stars to it. I thought the cupcakes could use some of those too. So in addition to that white Blizzard Nouveau drop that we added to the icing, I also have these fun stars, which add that little fun chunky element to it, and it just makes the images extra special. So these 2 tags are adorable and look so cute on little packages for somebody's birthday. I love the fun wrapping paper that I had here. This was craft paper with holographic hearts on it, and I thought these cupcakes just look so cute attached to these wrapped gifts. You could customize these tags to match your wrapping paper that you're going to be working with and wrapping gifts with. I think that's always fun to have the tag coordinate so perfectly with your wrapping. All right, we're hitting the home stretch here. One more card to share. This one's a quick one, but it features a lot of the same pieces we've been working with and just another way to use them. So I have some pattern paper that I've cut down to be 4x6, a little bit smaller than a 5x7 card. And I'm using that birthday wishes die, this time with some dark teal cardstock. And this is going to be the greeting that's going underneath the cupcake. And as you can see, the cupcake is similarly made to the other cupcakes we've been creating all throughout this video. I'm going to stack those birthday wishes together. I die cut that twice from that teal cardstock. These are going to get stacked together to form a slightly more dimensional greeting, which will look nice underneath my cupcake. This is going directly onto my card. I'm not going to use the shadow layer for this, although you could. I wanted the sentiment to be simple, so I thought it would look really nice just all by itself underneath the cupcake. I'm going to glue this directly onto my pattern paper. Again, I'm using Simon Says Stamp Craft Tacky Glue for this. It's one of my favorite adhesives to use. I'm bringing in, of course, the little dots above the eye, which is called the tittle. I'm gluing those down again with the help of my place and score tool just to make sure that I get these positioned perfectly. They're really small, so trying to grab those with your fingers is kind of difficult. I'm going to go ahead and pop up this pattern paper onto my 5x7 card, and then I will also use some foam tape to attach the cupcake, which I already made off camera in the same way that I did all of the other cupcakes, and this is going to get layered above the birthday wishes. Now off camera, I did add a little bit of sparkle to this using a bit of glossy accents and then some clear Distress Rock Candy glitter that I sprinkled over top. It was a little touch that I thought to add after the fact, but I'm glad I did. It adds that nice little touch of sparkle to this card, which it's a simple card, so having that little extra piece makes it stand out. I also did add a few little embellishments of some gem stickers around the cupcake too. Well, that was a lot to share. 4 different projects, all using very similar products, the same papers, the same dies. We also used that Sweet Birthday Wishes stamp set across all of these pieces. So a lot of fun ways that you can utilize these elements and make lots of different cards using the same products. I think one of my favorite cards from this video was the one where we used the Winslow Medallions embossing folder to emboss the pattern paper. Embossing pattern paper is such a fun way to elevate it and give it a whole new look. I encourage you to try out that idea and all of the others that I've shared today with some products that you already have in your stash. However, if you are looking for any of the products that I did use today, I do have them linked below in the video description and also on my blog, so you can find what I've been using today in this video. Well, I appreciate that you hung around and watched to the very end, so thank you so much. I look forward to coming back and sharing more with you all, but until then, have a wonderful day and keep on creating.